oftentimes we're so focused on execution and we're online, and, executing and in a rush to kind of catch up with the competition out there. But I think it's so important to take the time to really answer these questions to ensure you get it right. So I actually recommend get offline, take a pen and paper, and answer these questions yourself. So now that you have that established, the second section is really on building a community around your social media platform. So Sarah, we can head to the next slide. So understanding the algorithm, there's a lot of discussion around the Instagram algorithm. Also, algorithms across the board. There's one specific to Twitter, obviously. There's one for YouTube. So this is across the board, but I think it's really important to know that Instagram, for example, the average engagement rate on a static post is 1% to 2%. That used to be far higher, but nowadays the algorithm is really restricting that. The average engagement rate for stories is 7% to 12%. So when you're really thinking about building that engagement and getting the most amount of eyeballs on your content, don't discredit video content and stories, because your average amount of individuals who are viewing your content is much higher on stories than it is on static posts. And just to give you context on how that's calculated, it's your average number of views on your stories divided by your total Instagram following. So if you have 10,000 followers and 1,000 people are viewing your stories, you have a 10% Instagram story engagement rate. So also important to know that platforms like Instagram are really promoting their new features. So it's easier to achieve higher engagement on Reels, for example, right now than it is on static posts. So when platforms come out with new features, it's really actually advantageous to test and try and be one of the first to use them, because they are promoting those features, and you can really achieve a higher amount of engagement leveraging those. Consistent daily posting, I think this goes without saying. Consistency is really key. And when it comes to a brand or an influencer, posting every day or 5 days a week is pretty crucial to build up that engagement and kind of crack the code when it comes to the algorithms. So make sure that when you're mapping out your pillar and your content calendar, you're really building this out consistently. And again, a platform like Planoly is super beneficial to help you schedule that so that it takes some of the work off your plate. And, right now, the way to really hack organic growth is through highest level of engagement. So when you're looking to really grow your audience, the more that you engage with like-minded brands or creatives or individuals that you follow, leaving comments and likes and DMs, the more that you engage on the platform, the more that your platform will gain exposure. So community engagement is really crucial. Moving on to the next slide. So again, this is really reiterating, I can't stress enough, the importance of engagement. And I think, so often I see that brands are eager to speak at their audience and share their knowledge and their information and their expertise and all of the details about their brand. And they focus on brand messaging. But what's most important is to build a two-way dialogue. It's really where my company name stems from, because that is what develops a strong strategy. And it's about developing impactful and meaningful two-way conversations with your audience so that they are coming back for more, they're engaged, and they feel a connection with you. So really try and avoid to share information solely like you would a website to be very informative, and try and create conversations and get people involved. Heading to the next slide. Brand ambassadors. So I could talk for hours about influencer marketing. Obviously, this is sort of my expertise and forte, but I think what is really crucial to understand when you are a brand, engaging and developing your social and digital strategy. Influencer marketing goes hand in hand and is crucial in order to really help you grow your audience organically. So it is vital, but I really, really believe that it needs to happen in sequential order. So if you don't have a strong social content pillars and a following and a great two-way dialogue and all of these important aspects that create your brand aura, then you shouldn't be reaching out to try and engage ambassadors. You have to do the work up front. And we always tell brands that would like to work with our team, that, once a brand's halo effect is in place, our job becomes much, much more easier. So really important to lay that foundation first and foremost, and think about influencers secondarily. But what I can say about building brand ambassadors is that, there are many various ways to approach this. And, I've seen a lot of different tactics and many different companies within the influencer space over the years. There's sort of one school of thought of, relationship based, a lot of creative partnerships, and oftentimes treating influencers as they would editors in sort of gifting and organically introducing them to the brand. And I think that's a really crucial approach and vital in order to build the foundation of your influencer strategy. But oftentimes, if you don't have the foundation to track and to measure and to drive to conversion, these campaigns can be really challenging to really quantify. On the other side of the spectrum, there's a lot of performance marketing agencies that believe in campaigns rooted in trackability and metrics, which is great. But oftentimes, without a brand marketer behind the helm of these campaigns, they can run flat and be non-authentic. And you see it a lot in these sort of hashtag ad type partnerships. So, and then in the center, there's a ton of platforms that automate influence marketing. And from my experience using a lot of these platforms, I found that, it's tricky to find the right curation of partners, and the right individuals you want to work with don't necessarily want to be treated like robots getting these sort of generic campaign opportunities. So at Dialogue, we take a hybrid approach when developing influence marketing strategies, taking sort of the most important aspects of all three of those strategies. And, what I recommend to early stage brands that are just launching is to reach out and build authentic relationships in-house and see what you can do organically to kind of get the ball rolling. And then for more established brands that are looking to build connections, it's really important to still maintain that authenticity and the importance of connection and relationships with your strategy. So don't lose touch when you start to allocate budget to these campaigns. Don't lose touch with your initial approach, which is to build connection and two-way dialogues with these creatives. And on the flip side, I know there's a lot of influencers joining us today as well. I think what's really important from that point of view when building connections with brands, because we represent many, many brands and build out connections and campaigns with influencers, is really to think of it as a relationship game. And I think, nurture it along the way. So always be open to try a product and kind of see if it resonates and it fits within your lifestyle. And then, be open to attending an event and getting to know the brand marketers and building those connections. And then also, when it comes time to build out paid campaigns, have your metrics ready and know your strengths. So are you an amazing content creator that can provide great value to a brand in that sense of creating great assets? Or are you a converter, and do you know that you have the audience that converts and purchases what you recommend? Or are you a great brand awareness ally that can help, really bring awareness to a client's brand? Know your strengths and come prepared with your analytics and your back-end stats. And, every time that I'm reached out by an influencer with this kind of approach, there's no question that's really your way to stand apart from the rest and really develop credibility. So that's just my 2 cents on influencer marketing as a whole. But certainly after this chat, you guys can find me on Instagram, Julianne Fraser, or my email's at the end of this deck, and would be happy to answer questions as it relates to that. This last slide here just shows a couple of case studies of what we've done with some of our clients. So with Clé de Peau, for example, we developed a 1-year annual ambassadorship with Ami Song, an amazing OG influencer, where we actually took her to Tokyo and Kyoto to meet the team and understand the research and development, and really to bring to life the culture behind what is the #1 Japanese beauty brand, and share that with her American audience so that we can build that credibility. And that trip transitioned into a stateside event. It transitioned to a holiday campaign. So this just demonstrates this really great authentic connection of someone who loved the brand first and foremost, but as a way to really kind of build out ongoing relationships with influencers. A couple other examples with Daily Harvest, we helped them launch their Harvest Bowl, a brand new product. And in developing that strategy, we were thinking through really being thoughtful in the curation of what partners made most sense, who would be interested in this product, and how can we really help get the word out there and support the brand launch across the board. And finally, Woolrich, this was a New York Fashion Week campaign. The brand was interested in really being positioned as a high fashion Italian high quality brand and looking to work with influencers attending the shows. So that's an example from more of an experiential standpoint, how we help the brand really integrate and leverage digital exposure to kind of help them to build up that momentum. So influencer marketing can come to light in many, many different formats. But as I mentioned, I really highly recommend that you do your due diligence and really take the time to set up your social channels strongly before you tap into this world. So there, that really explains it. So I think that wraps up the kind of foundations of my recommendations, and would be happy to answer any questions that I know that there's been a lot of questions coming through to Q&A. So Sarah, maybe I'll pass it over to you if you have a couple of questions from the group.
Absolutely. That was so much information. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I know people have been taking notes. And also just remember, we will be sharing this recording afterwards. So if you missed anything and you want to revisit it, we will be sending that out so you can make sure to go back in the recording. So we have a few minutes to dive into some Q&As. First of all, let's see. So for someone who is just launching a new product or a new line, they don't have a lot of inventory, what is one way that they can create their content strategy to where they're actually putting content out there, but not just promoting the same product over and over and looking like they only have one thing going?
Yeah, so a brand with one SKU ultimately is sort of the question, not multiple product SKUs.
Yeah, they basically just started as a brand, so they only have a few products to promote, but they want to have strong content to share with their whole community.
Yeah, I think what's really important to think about is, again, when thinking about a content strategy, it really is about sharing many different aspects of and many different content pillars that is core to your brand. So your audience isn't just interested in the benefits of your product, but they want to know your founder's story. They want to know the production process. They want to know the inspiration behind the branding and the naming. They want to know who's on the team and where can they find the product and why did you choose certain retailers to partner with or whatever it might look like. So I would suggest that, you really take the time again to define those content pillars outside of product details. And there's lots to talk about. And I think, we work with plenty of clients that only have one SKU, but it's just important to think of it in terms of really diversifying the various details about your brand, so that you keep people engaged, because repetitive content about product, you'll find drop off. So I hope that answers.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess, do you think that that could relate to people who have service-based companies as well? Because I know sometimes if you don't have a specific product to share, you don't know where to go, because sometimes like your service may not be very aesthetic, or if it's like able to just create content with. So like, would you like approach it if you had a service-based company?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I can speak about this firsthand because my company is service-based, and our social strategy, and we're using Planoly actually to really help us in managing that. But, we are a digital and influencer marketing agency, and do people want to hear over and over about our clients and our work? It could get repetitive. And honestly, if you're not necessarily in the industry, that might not spark your interest. So when we built out our content pillars, we were thinking about what the various elements of social and digital that people are interested in. So we're sharing what's in the news, what's buzzing about social media that you might not be aware of, and what's trending on platforms. So I think as a service industry, it's really about digging, or a service brand, it's about digging into what your expertise is and what your knowledge is that you can share. Again, thinking outside of the core business of being a digital marketing consultancy, but what do we know that others might not, that we can offer value in? So I think even if your brand isn't necessarily as aesthetically driven, it's still important to define that aesthetic up front. And I think there's a lot that can be shared as a service business that can relate to your industry. So just defining content pillars and your audience, and then you're good to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you just mentioned content pillars, and a few people have questions about that. And so I think kind of like the takeaway is just kind of thinking outside of the box. So if you are a service-based industry and something that you can talk about is something that's happening in your industry, then that can create a content pillar, So I think
totally.
That's one thing that a lot of people kind of have issues with. So do you have any tips on creating content pillars besides just kind of like thinking outside of the box? Or is it just kind of look at what you want to put out there and where can you reach your audience?
Yeah, so maybe it would be helpful. I can give sort of 3 examples. So if you're a new brand, for example, your content pillars might look like product information. So where are your ingredients sourced, and how is it made, and what's the research and development process behind your product? And if you are an influencer or a creator, really it's a personal question of what your interests are. So do you love to travel? Maybe that's one pillar, and you talk about how you book your flights and what your essentials are on the plane, and so many different details within that one category. But that's one pillar. And maybe a second pillar is fashion, of where you find, your best vintage finds, and how you style a look, and where you get your inspiration from, and what magazines you like. And then a third pillar could be culinary and cooking, where are you eating and what recipes do you like? So from a brand perspective, it's looking at the various elements of the business. From a influencer's perspective, what interests you the most, and what do you think your audience would love to learn about? And from a service industry, like I said, our pillars as a service-based company are, we have one on what's in the news. So what is buzzing about influencer and digital marketing that you might not be aware of? What are the new platform updates? What are the new algorithm changes? What companies are doing amazing things on TikTok, and how can you gain inspiration? So that's one pillar of in the news. And another pillar is creatives that inspire us. So we work with influencers, we work with artists, we work with photographers. So each week we are going to feature different collaborators that we work with, and why we find them interesting, and how we work with them, and what makes them unique. So that's just an example from a service-based company like mine.
Oh no. Okay, so it looks like we lost Julianne, but no worries on that. We have over 94 questions to ask in our Q&A, but no worries. She will be on our Facebook page to answer any questions. And then also we will be sending out her contact info. So if you want to reach out to her on her Instagram and ask any other questions, feel free to do that. We are so excited that you were able to join our workshop today. And we have 4 more workshops coming up in these next 4 weeks, all about creating scrappy content, how to edit your photos, how to do reels, how to write your captions, everything that you're going to need to know for your content strategy for your Instagram and all of your other platforms that you choose. So I hope you all have a great day. Make sure to look out for the email for the recording and make sure to attend our workshops in the future.